Welcome back for another book talk video. It's Tuber Tuesday, and I want to do something original today. I don't think I've seen any other booktubers do this topic, but I want to discuss the authors I've read the most books by. And I'll give you a moment to guess. Those of you who followed my channel, who have seen a lot of my videos, and you know the kind of books that I like, the authors that I tend to talk about, I think you may be surprised. I guess it's time to see though. I went through my Goodreads, I put the authors in alphabetical order, and I scrolled through. It was about 1,000 books to scroll through. I counted up the authors that had 5 or more books that I've read, and I put them together. First, let me say there were 26 authors that I've read 5 or more books by. That is a lot, I really think. So we're just going to tie them for the place, and I will say in 10th place it was 5 books, and there were 6 authors that fit that description. They are Kevin J. Anderson, who wrote a bunch of Star Wars books when I was growing up, Aristotle, the classic Greek philosopher. I love reading his books. Jim Butcher, who of course wrote the Dresden Files. I believe I've read 5 of them. I could be wrong. I might have read the 6th one, but I think it's just 5 at this point. Dashiell Hammett, who wrote classic pulp noir detective novels. He had 5 novels. That's all he wrote. Otherwise, I would have read more by him. Let's see. William Shatner, the actor who played Captain Kirk. I've read 2 of his autobiographies, and he also wrote a bunch of novels. So I read 3 of his novels that were a series, The Odyssey, I believe. And then also on this list is Jack Vance, the classic fantasy writer, The Eyes of the Overworld, the Dying Earth series. He was the inspiration for Dungeons and Dragons character Vecna. Vance, when you rearrange the letters of that, becomes Vecna. And then in 9th place, with a total of 6 books that I've read, we've got about 5 authors. Let's see who they are. Pierce Brown, who wrote the Red Rising series. I have read the graphic novel that is a prequel to it. Hope I didn't count that wrong. Then we've got Alan Dean Foster, one of my favorite science fiction authors growing up. His trilogy of The Damned really stood out to me, inspired a lot of my own storytelling. Frank Herbert, who wrote the Dune series. I've managed to read all 6 Dune books. It was a challenge to get through the last couple of those, but they were very interesting to read. I'm glad I did. Then Robert E. Howard, who wrote Conan the Barbarian. Now, granted, he's the original author of Conan, and some of these books are collections of short stories, but there are other authors who've also written the Conan books after his death. At 6 books, I've also got Mark Twain, the American literature classic writer. I love The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I could go on and on about that. In 8th place, with 7 books, we've got 4 authors. Ernest Hemingway. You've heard me talk about him here on the channel. C.S. Lewis. I've read all 7 books in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series. J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter books, of course, and the team of Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, who wrote the Dragonlance novels. I've read, I think, 7 of those books. Though it was a long time ago, it's possible I read more than that, and they just aren't marked on my Goodreads. That is the potential for error here, is I'm just going off what was marked on the Goodreads. In 7th place, one author that I've read 8 books by. This one I'm sure you could have guessed from my channel, Agatha Christie. I've managed to read 8 of her novels at this point. A mixture of Miss Marple, Hercule Poirot, and now Colonel Race as well. Let's see, in 6th place, there are 2 authors I've read 9 books of, and they are Douglas Adams with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy stories, as well as the Dirk Gently Holistic Detective Agency books, and F. Scott Fitzgerald, the author of The Great Gatsby. Some of those are short story collections in addition to his novels. In 5th place, with 10 books that I've read, got 2 authors. Gardner F. Fox, who created Kyric the Barbarian, similar to Conan the Barbarian, as well as a lot of other stories. He's also written a lot of comic book series. Gardner F. Fox, believe it or not, is a huge name that you may have never heard of back in the history of fantasy and superheroes and all of that. And then also John Scalzi, because I've read the Old Man's War series, I've now read the Interdependency trilogy, and I read the book Red Shirts by him. In fourth place with 11 books I've read, there's one author, and that's John Grisham. I've read a lot of those suspense stories, mysteries with attorney characters, people on the run, or people associated with legal cases, those legal thriller kind of stories. A lot of those have been turned into movies, and I should probably do some videos on them at some point. They are interesting. In third place with 12 books, I've got two authors. Chuck Palahniuk. I was a huge fan of Fight Club and really enjoyed a lot of the psychology and philosophy that he built into his story. So I read a lot of his books, but eventually I gave up. I love Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club and a few of the others, but he tries so hard to be weird and out there that some of it got a little too weird eventually. It's another author I really do need to make some videos about. Let's see, and then the other person that was there with 12 books is Brandon Sanderson. Probably no surprise, talk about fantasy a lot. Now that I've read the Stormlight Archive series, in counting the novellas along with the big books, as well as having read the Mistborn series, I mean, they add up over time when you add up all those books. And I intend to read more Brandon Sanderson. He will probably end up higher up on this list very easily. In second place, with 13 books that I've read, there are two authors, one of which is R.A. Salvatore, or Bob, as he will tell you to call him if you ever meet him, which I got to do at a book signing back in my college days. He's a hilarious man. And of course, most of those novels that I've read by him are stories about the character Drizzt, the Dark Elf series from the Forgotten Realms. And also tying with R.A. Salvatore was William Shakespeare. I have not really talked about William Shakespeare's plays on this channel, but I want to. It's a goal for the future. Huge fan of Hamlet and Othello, The Tempest, a lot of his work. And of course, I was an English major in college, so there's a reason that I've read that many Shakespearean plays. Alright, that brings us to first place. Who will it be? Who is the author that I have read more books by than anyone else? Do you have a guess? This may shock you, but in first place, with 14 books that I've read by him, is Gary Gygax. And those are all novels. Those are not, role-playing manuals. If I actually added in old things that were role-playing manuals and such, there'd be a lot more. But believe it or not, Gary Gygax wrote a lot of novels. He wrote the Gord the Rogue series, which was set on Oerth, which is a great fantasy setting with all that going on. And then after he left TSR, which became Wizards of the Coast, the D&D company, he wrote other novels as well. And I'm including the Sigurd the Barbarian series in here, even though those are basically choose your own adventure kind of books, but there were 4 of them and I really enjoyed them. That helped Gary Gygax end up being number 1 for the authors I've read the most books by. Hope you enjoyed the video. I would love to hear from you and know who is the author that you have read the most books by. Have you ever thought about it? Do you even know? Every day is a good day for a book talk. Peace.